see how we can help one another be better with goal setting. And my hope is that you enter 2021, and no matter what happens in that year, that you're able to rise above every storm and everything that would seem like a limitation or an obstacle, and excel at whatever you set your heart to do. Okay. All right. So just as a heads up, um, this is recorded. So if you'd like to have access to this afterwards, maybe you want to listen again or you want to share with someone, that's allowed. I will make that available to everyone who is registered for the event. And I do know that we're also still expecting more people. So first things first, I just want to acknowledge and welcome everybody. Ife Jesu is here. She's the co-host. And Ladies Arise kind of started with me and her. So thank you, Ife, for being there, the passion that she's shown when we first talked about this idea. I want to say welcome to my namesake. Hi, Anita. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Thank you for being here today. Wow, it's really nice to see you here. Thank you for being here today. Obolu, thank you for being here. Um, Auntie Remy, sorry, I'm not going to call you by your first name, webinar or not. Thank you for being here. Timmy, thank you for being here. I do know that I definitely had way more restriction than this, but for whatever reason, I'd like to think that others will join us sooner than later. And there are others who have expressed their regrets for not being able to be here. Okay, so without much ado, I'm going to share my screen here and just kind of get us started. Okay, can we all see the screen? Just let me know, give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen. All right, awesome. Thank you. So let's get started. This is supposed to be 2 hours. I'll try and keep it under 2 hours. So just work with me. I hope you have your pen, you have your papers, and you're ready. Let us get started. So welcome to Score 21, setting and scoring goals in 2021. And like I mentioned earlier, my hope is that we all get into the next year and we hit the ground running. Okay, that's the only way that we can give ourselves a head start and be able to navigate through whatever comes in the new year. All right, so before we go further, I just want to ask a question, and I'd like to, I want this to be engaging, and we're all doing this together, so please work with me, all right, and cooperate. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, show of hands. I'm sure you can all see the screen, right? If any of this has ever applied to you, you have made New Year resolutions, and before the year is over, it fizzled out. Show of hands, thumbs up, comments on the, all right, awesome, thank you. Thank you. It's happened to me too, all right? And, or you've always felt like there's so much on your mind, but you don't exactly know what is it that is really bugging you, but there's a lot of things going on your mind. Show of hands, anybody? Who's been there? Yep, been there too, been there too. All right, thank you. You've set goals, but you felt like you never achieved them, or you feel like you never achieved them, and you just really just don't know what exactly you're probably doing wrong. Happened? Awesome. I feel like some of us will probably have our hands up for the whole, for all the options. All right. And then this is one of my most favorite ones that for me actually got me to a place where I realized that I just had to do more with myself and be more conscious and intentional with my life and my time. You've spent a day, a week, or a year, and afterwards you just sit down and you're wondering, what exactly did I do with myself that was meaningful within this time frame? Happened? Awesome. Thank you. So if any of this has happened to you, even if it's just one of it, trust me, then you need this. And I'm glad that you are here. It just means that, you're not giving up on doing what you need to do to help yourself move forward in life. And congratulations on that. So thank you for being here and thank you for being sincere. And honestly, I have been on all of this too. And I'm a stickler for helping people be better. And I'm a stickler for teaching people how to be better. I believe more in the, adage that says that it's better to teach a man how to fish than to give him fish. Because I believe that if you and I know, we know the right things to do and we help each other do those things, then we're growing better individually and collectively, and then we're also helping people around us be better as well. At the very least, they see our lives and they find something meaningful to want to emulate. So thank you for your sincerity. All right, so I'm just going to give us a little background to that. Actually, was my background to score 21. But overall, with Ladies Arise, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a stickler for helping people be better, and even much more so for women. All right, as women, historically speaking, we've 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 experienced things that tend to relegate us to the background, put us down. Try to tell us, society tells us that we can't do certain things, or make us feel like we're less for wanting to do certain things. And those things are wrong. All right. And for me, this is just my own little way of trying to right that wrong, no matter how I know it might seem like very little to some people, but it feels like a lot for me. And every time I hear someone say, oh, thank you for saying this or sharing that, it really motivates me to want to do more. And that's why Ladies Arise exists. Now, I know a couple guys who have said, oh my God, knowing you and knowing what you're planning to do, why won't you let guys in? And my response is, historically, you guys have always had things in your favor. All right. Women have not been that lucky, if I'll put it that way. All right. And so I thought that it was best to give women that space to help each other just be better without all the judgments and the competition and all the bickerings that sometimes people, the stereotypes that people think of women when women come together is that they gossip, they do this, or they backbite each other. But this is just to help us, have a platform that does otherwise, but actually help one another grow. And so that's how Ladies Arise. That's one of the things that for me really, got me to birth Ladies Arise. And I just want to see that women are builded up and equipped to be whatever best, whatever field you're in. If you want to be as a mother, to help you be the best mother, as a wife to help you be the best wife, as a career woman to be the best, whatever you're doing. And Score 21 in itself is just helping people get to a place where sometimes we want to start with the very complex things, but we forget the very rudimentary things like goal setting. All right. And that's why I thought to do Score 21 is to say, let's start this from the basics. Okay. So once again, thank you for being here. And yes, now we're finally jumping in. So today, what are you to expect from this session today? We're going to start with looking at what goal setting is not. All right. Because when we establish for ourselves that this is not what it is, then it's easy to keep our minds open to really understand then what is goal setting. All right. And what are the benefits to goal setting? Okay. Because sometimes when we don't know the benefits to why we're doing the things we're doing, then it's easy to just discard it. Or when the first opposition that we face, we will just throw it out and move on to other things. All right. And some of us, we've been in this pattern in our lives for far too long, and it's time to change that. So you're going to understand what some of the benefits of goal setting are. Excuse me, what the barriers to goal setting are. And this is where we get to talk about the things that sometimes get in the way of why we set goals and we're not able to either achieve them, or we're not able to really maximize the idea of goal setting. And then we're going to talk about how we can overcome these barriers, right? And then we're going to look at what good goal setting is. I know when every time people hear the word goal setting, everybody just thinks smart goals. Yes, we'll definitely talk about smart goals. But before we jump right into that, I'd like for us to just at least see some of the benefits to it, the barriers, how to overcome those barriers, so that when you're getting to that place where you're setting those goals, you know exactly what you're doing and how you're going about what you're doing. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about navigating goals through unexpected life turns. And in here, I will talk a little bit about the goals that I set for myself for this year, and how COVID or no COVID, I was able to get through those things. Now, if you know me, I'm a Christian, so I always, first of all, excuse me, don't worry, I have my coffee and my water here. So if you see me taking breaks to sip, pardon me, I get dry throat very easily. All right, so how just getting through the goals that I've set for myself, my family, and COVID or no COVID, how I was able to just get back on the wagon to do things that I wanted to do for myself. And then we're going to take a look at the toolkits. Now, if you're subscribed to the Ladies Arise Club, you already have this toolkit sent to your inbox before now. And so just we're going to look at that. And I believe I mentioned that don't fill it out yet until after the session, right? And we're going to just look at why it's set the way it is set. And trust me, everything is going to look very simple, all right? Because I believe in simplicity, all right? Everything is going to look very simple, but sometimes that something is simple doesn't necessarily make it easy. But that's why we're here, and that's why we're working together and doing this. And then we're going to go through questions and answers. So if you have any questions, you don't have to wait till the end. You can put them in the box. If just will be taking notes of all the questions, and then she's going to bring them up at the end, and we're going to answer them. And if I see something in the chat box as well that I feel like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to wait till the end, I can also speak to it as well. So feel free to drop in your questions. And all right, so first things first, goal setting is not. What goal setting is not? So goal setting is not New Year resolutions, all right? And I was a little skeptical trying to do this at the end of the year or beginning of the year, and I didn't want people to get it mixed up. That goal setting, this is about New Year resolution. No, it's beyond that, okay? Now, New Year's resolutions will feed into your goals, but goal setting is not New Year resolutions. All right, it's not willpower. All right, it's not I have to do this, so therefore no. And a lot of this is where sometimes a lot of all these perspire to aspire species come in. It goes beyond that. Okay, goal setting is not a wish list. All right, it is not oh my god, I wish I can do this, I wish I can do that, I wish I can go to the moon, I wish I can. No, that's not what goal setting is. Again, some of all these things can somewhat fit into your goals, but it's not just about that. And sometimes these are the things that some of us do, and we think we're setting goals for ourselves. All right, it's not a bucket list. Okay, again, it can fit into your goals for whatever reason. It's good to have bucket lists. I have mine of things that I know that, again, it's more of a wish list that may or may not happen over the course of your life. All right. And it's definitely not a to-do list. It's not just okay, today I'll do this, I'll do that. Again, these things can fit into goal settings, but it goes way beyond all of these even combined. All right. And so now that we know that this is not what goal setting is, we're going to go a little further in to see what then is goal setting. All right. So one other thing, I'm a stickler for definitions. So what then is goal setting? All right. And I kind of pulled three different definitions from three different sources. And I'm going to start with Cambridge Dictionary that defines goal setting as the process of deciding what you want to achieve or what you want someone else to achieve over a particular period. Take notes of some keywords here. All right. Definition 2 says from your dictionary.com says the process. Goal setting is the process of identifying something that you want to accomplish and establishing measurable goals and time frames. All right. So keyword again here is particular period. Keyword that feeds into the first definition, particular period, time frames. All right. Something you want to achieve, something you want to accomplish. Okay. And just because everybody loves Wikipedia, although researchers will tell you it's not a reliable source, but oh well, it's easy. Wikipedia says goal setting involves the development of an action plan designed to motivate and guide a person or group toward a goal. Okay, so these are some definitions. Again, I'm sure some of these things are probably not new to you, all right? But simple as they sound, it's amazing that sometimes we find it difficult to do and follow through. So these are some of the definitions of what goal setting is. So there's always an agenda. There's a process of decision making that goes into it. There are measurable goals. There are time frames that are involved. There are action plans. I'm sure you're already seeing the SMART acronym in all of this already. But again, how does all of this fit into something practical that you and I can take and apply to our lives? And we'll see that in a moment here. So what are some of the benefits then to goal setting? Just going to move this a bit here. What are some of the benefits to goal setting? And this is in no particular order. And if there is anything that I need to maybe build a little bit more on, I will do so. But some of the benefits are that goal setting actually provides clarity, direction, and redirection. All right. So if you're wondering direction and redirection, what exactly does that mean? All right. So first things first, the good thing about goal setting, or one of the things about goal setting that we'll see later on here, is that it has to be clear and concise, right? But and it's in that clarity that you're able to see and say, okay, this is exactly what I need to do. All right. And then that gives you direction to say this is the route that I need to take. This is the way that I need to go in accomplishing this task that I need to accomplish. All right. And redirection, when we talk about goal setting or achieving your goals during unexpected life events, you'll see practically how redirection actually comes into play. But when you have your goals set and something happens, then you're able to quickly re-navigate yourself, and that's redirection. All right. So, but if you don't have the goal set at all, then you're really aiming for nothing, and you're not going to redirect anything, and you're not going to achieve anything. And that's just the simple truth. All right. But another benefit is that goal setting sharpens your subconscious antenna. Quick question for some of you: how many of you have you make a decision and say, I'm going to do XYZ, right? Or let's say you say, I'm going to um maybe I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe you say, I'm going to start saving money. All right. And then all of a sudden it's like you start seeing things that were there that you never really saw before. Or you say, I want to buy a house. That's actually a very good example. I want to buy a house, right? And then all of a sudden you drive through somewhere that you've driven through a dozen times, and it's after you make that decision to say, I want to buy a house, that you start seeing everywhere where they're building houses. It's like suddenly something opens up in your environment that starts to attract you to seeing where the opportunities lie. All right. And that's one of the things that goal setting actually does. Thank you. It's one of the things that goal setting does. It actually sharpens your subconscious antenna and begins to bring to fore to your consciousness opportunities that lie before you. Okay. And so that's one of the benefits. Goal setting also helps create motivation. All right. When your mind is consumed with what you need to do and the end picture that you're looking to achieve, all right, when you want to give up, okay, and you remember the benefits that you're going to enjoy at the end of that, it builds motivation, it fuels motivation. All right. And goal setting also improves strategic and critical thinking. And how does this happen? So you set a goal and it feels like, okay, it's not working, as we're going to see later how to navigate those moments, right? What then happens is you're forced to think, to say, what can I do differently? How can I move myself closer to my goal from what I thought? This is what I thought I needed to do, but it doesn't seem like it's working. What can I do differently, right? And oftentimes, especially when your goal is attached to something that is more long term, all right, it forces you to say, okay, this is the end picture and this is where I am today. How do I move from here to here? Even though maybe there's 5 years gap in between, how do I keep myself focused on the fifth year, but then do something in the first year that contributes to the fifth year? And as you're asking all of those questions, guess what you're doing? You're applying strategic thinking, you're applying critical thinking. All right. And some of us sometimes don't know this. And you see that the more you do that, even in your workplace or at school or whatever it is that you're doing, it's almost as if you're quick to thinking on your feet. All right. And which also ties into the next benefits, which is it improves your problem solving skills. All right. The more you do this for yourself personally, when situations come up at work, at home, anywhere, all right, it's almost like you're the person that, you're quick to say, hey, we can do this. All right. But it comes from a place of consistently, building, setting goals and achieving them, and just critically thinking to say, how can I do better to move forward? All right. And then it helps keep you focused. Okay. So you're not pulled in 1,000 directions. All right. And sometimes that's what happens to some of us, is that we're pulled in diverse directions. All right. And so we're not focused on the things that are really important. And then that's where we tend to major on the minors, and then we're minoring on the majors. All right. And then we spend the whole week and we're feeling like, oh, I had this really important thing to do. I didn't get to do it. And then you look back and it's like you did 1,000 things, you're tired, you're worn out, but then the things that are really dear to you, that are important to you, that are in your heart, you didn't even get to touch them. And that can be frustrating. And some of us have been in that cycle for too long. It's enough. All right. That's enough. It's time to break you out of that cycle. All right. And then it helps build vision. Vision is a whole topic on its own. And who knows, maybe at a later time I'll probably even do something on vision. But goal setting actually helps you build vision, especially if you're someone who is still struggling with identifying what your overall life purpose is. Goal setting on a small scale basis or large scale basis can actually help you start to visualize, your future. And that's basically what vision is. All right. And then finally, goal setting helps you see where to make adjustments in the event of unexpected events. There are people whose lives were thrown over by COVID, not because they lost their jobs, no, not because they got sick themselves, no, not because they lost a loved one during the COVID season, no, not because they went homeless, but it felt like their year just fizzled out and they really can't say this is one tangible thing I did with the year, not because all of those things that are outside of their control happened, but because they didn't exactly even have a direction for their lives at the beginning of the year to begin with. And when something as unexpected as COVID happened, it just threw them off balance. And then day in, day out, they just kind of went through the motions and never really achieved anything for themselves. Okay. Okay. All right. And they never really achieved anything for themselves. And so, but when you have goals set and unexpected events like that happen, there are ways that you can actually use your goal setting to re-navigate yourself. And that's where redirection actually comes in. All right. So we're going to move on to looking at some of the, oh, sorry. So we've talked about the benefits to goal setting, all right? And we're going to look at some of the barriers to goal setting because, I mean, think about it. If you know that these are the benefits that you stand to gain, then it begs the question to say that if we all know that this is what we can get, then why exactly are we not doing these things? Why are people not writing goals? Why are people not setting goals? Why are people not achieving the goals? Some people do set them, but it becomes a struggle to achieve them. And why it's that? All right. And those are the things that we're going to look at again in no particular order. And if it's something I need to focus a little bit more on, I will do so, just because some of these things, carry more weight than others. All right. So chances are that your goal is too vague. All right. So someone says, I want to make more money. What exactly does more money mean? How much money are you even making right now? Do you even know? Right? So I want to make more money. That's too vague. That's not a goal. It's probably just a wish. Everybody wants to make more money. Sometimes my kids will say, I really want to have, maybe it's at night, they're not supposed to have candy, and then they go, I really want to have candy. And I'm like, yeah, and I really want $1 million in my account right now. Okay. And let's all make the wishes that we want, that we all know that right this second it won't happen. Maybe tomorrow that can change, but right this second we all know it won't happen. So sometimes the goals that we're setting, it's too vague, all right? Or it is too small. I'm a firm believer in personal growth. Okay. And sometimes when we set goals that are just very minimal, we spend the rest of our lives doing minimal things. Okay. And a lot of people are in this place where they just do the minimal job and then they just go about their minimal day and just do the most minimal things. All right. And honestly speaking, you won't grow. Okay. It might look like there's motion, but you'll probably just be going in circles. All right. And that isn't growth. Okay. But sometimes when we set a goal and then it stretches us a bit, we achieve it. It gives us the motivation and drive to say, if I did this, then I can do something more. So when our goal setting is minimal, it's only a matter of time before we just settle into a routine of our lives. And then we just keep doing the minimal things day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out. And then years go by and we're still pretty much in the same spot. Okay. And that isn't good. All right. And as a new immigrant to Canada, I see a lot of new immigrants make this mistake a lot. All right. They come here, expectations are not what it seems like it would be, and then they settle. And then 5 years go by. And in my conversations with a number of new people, I sometimes hear this a lot. I've been here 5 years, I've been here 6 years, I've been here 10 years, and I feel like I've really not achieved anything for my life or in my life, chances are that they're either not even setting goals to begin with to move forward, or they're setting too little goals, okay? Or they get carried away with at a certain level and it's like, okay, this is heaven and I'm going to stay put here. That is detrimental to us, all right? And also, on the flip side of that is that sometimes it is too much. Focus is very key when it comes to goal setting. You can't be pulled in 1,000 directions. It is not possible. All right. So sometimes, and this is where learning how to set long-term goals can also come in to say, and if you're somebody who you're like me, you feel like you're multi-talented and there's just so much that your heart yearns for that you want to do, we are the people that fall victim, that tend to fall victim to this. All right. We tend to want to do so much at the same time. And guess what? Would only crumble. All right. And personally, I learned that the hard way. All right. Sometimes more is not always better. Okay. And mistake number one, everybody makes it is never written. And we'll see some fun facts about goal setting later. A lot of people just talk about the things they want to do, but they never write it down. And that's a very huge mistake. All right. And sometimes this is what gives you that feeling of, I have so many things to do, but you really can't pinpoint to say, this is what I need to do. All right. One thing I always do when I'm at that moment, even with just my everyday task in life, is I just take a pen and paper and start writing down those things that I feel like I have to do this, I have to do this. Guess what? Sometimes it is literally just three things. Yet it feels like 1,000 things in my mind and it bugs you and you can't move on to do other things. All right. And then the other thing is that follows closely to not writing it down is that it is not always before your face. When you set goals and you write them down, it's not enough to just write them down. Is it before your face? Are you constantly seeing it as a reminder to say, this is where I need to be? That is part of the idea of visioning. And that is part of what also drives the motivation that comes with goal setting as the benefits that I mentioned earlier. So you write it down, kudos. Is it before your face? Is it somewhere that you're constantly seeing it and remembering that I need to do this? Okay. And fear. All right. Sometimes we're afraid that it is beyond us. Okay. And sometimes we're afraid that if we write it, then it's validated that we have to do it and we're afraid to fail. It's okay. Failure is not always a bad thing like people think. All right. I personally, I have been through a lot of failure moments. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking of doing a session one day, either maybe on my YouTube channel or with the teenagers that I teach. I'm actually even thinking of doing something with them where I'd probably call it a learning to fail or the joy of failing, something along those lines. All right. And it is just to help us see how to milk failure and gain success out of failure. All right. So, but it's okay that it should scare you. Your goals sometimes should scare you. Sometimes. All right. Not too much that it overwhelms you, but it should sometimes feel there should be that tinge of impossibility to it. But then watch yourself overcome it. And then it feels like I can do anything. All right. And truly, we can do much more than we realize, is one thing I find. The more we do, the more we tend to do. All right. So, other barriers is past failures. If you've tried to do this before and it feels like it didn't work, chances are you would not want to do it again. Or even when you do it, you won't really put your heart and soul into it, so that if you fail, you can tell yourself that, oh well, at least I know I didn't put in effort, so I don't feel bad because I knew I was not going to get it done anyway. All right. And we get trapped in that mindset, but it's time that we break out of that. All right. And closely following that also is lack of discipline. All right. We're all guilty of this in one form or the other. All right. I have my own weak points where this is a problem. Discipline is a problem. You'd always be more disciplined in one area of your life than other, or someone would always be more disciplined in one area of life than you will be in that same area of life. All right. Between my husband and I, there are areas where he has much more discipline than I do. And sometimes I piggy bank on his own discipline. All right. And he may or may not know that, but I piggy bank on his own discipline to just propel me forward. All right. And then another barrier to goal setting, and this is a very important one, is that it is not tied to people's overall life's purpose. Purpose is a huge propeller. It is a huge motivating factor. So if your goals that you're setting in a particular month or year or even over a period of year isn't tied to a larger purpose of life, you know, no jokes. Actually, there's research has shown that people who are purposeful tend to live longer, of course, in an ideal sense, that they don't fall victim to terminal diseases and whatnot. And even when they do, sometimes you see them fight through it. And I mean, Chadwick Boseman is a very typical example of this. Even with stage 3 or 4 cancer, we saw this man push through that sickness and gave life the last. And the when I mean the last, he gave life everything. He literally emptied out on the set, giving us things to remember for long after he was gone. All right. And sometimes that's what purpose does to a person, is that it would help you pull through the toughest of life situations, that and as you set your goals and you tie it into that purpose, when you want to give up, what it does is that it brings the future and gives you present day benefits. So you see how what you're doing today ties into 5 years from now, ties into people that will come across your path 5, 10 years from now. And when you want to give up, you remember that person today and you're like, okay, I have to do this, even if not for myself, for future generations. All right. And when there is a life's purpose or something bigger than just today or just this year attached to it, then it's easier to actually navigate through. But most times people just set goals that are just in the immediate, and it doesn't go beyond that moment, and that can be a problem and a barrier. And this is also why sometimes we tend to live minimal lives too, because you feel like, oh, well, I've done this, so what's the big deal? And then you are at the risk of settling into a cycle of minimalist life for yourself if you're not careful. All right. And then the other thing too that is really huge is that there's no support and accountability system. And we're going to look at this a little bit later. All right. No man is an island. All right. We all need people to propel us and motivate us sometimes. We all need each other. And for me, that's one of the reasons why I set up the Ladies Arise, is that as women, when we come together and we're reading our books and we're doing this, when you know that for everyone in the book club to have a complete experience of the book we're reading, you have to read your 2 chapters, and we're counting on you. The truth is, it propels you to want to read your 2 chapters. All right. And you're like, it's just 2 chapters. Nobody's even asking me to read the whole book. Yes. I'm talking to those of you in the book club right now. And then the other barrier is that it's not flexible. There's no flexibility or adaptability. All right. This is goal setting. We're not carving things in a stone. Okay. And sometimes people make the mistake of not giving room for flexibility. And this also is why when unexpected life events happen, people tend to get thrown off the wagon and they can't see where to make adjustments. When you're not flexible enough or you're not adaptable and you're just set in your ways, it can be a barrier to your plans and goals that you have set for yourself. All right. So learn to be flexible and be adaptable. And then the other thing is that there are no reviews. This is this is a very huge one too, honestly. When you set goals, do you go back to say, how am I doing with my goals so far? January comes and goes. How have I done so far in this month? All right. Am I doing good? Am I doing well? All right. And if you've been in, I volunteer at church, and if you've been in any of the units that I have led, one of the things that personally I like to do, I know people don't like, because people don't like work. Not everybody enjoys it, but one of the things that I like to do is I like to have a system that is set up in a way that there is at least a meeting every month or every quarter. But I'm not going to just set up my year's plan and then wait till the end of the next year. Mm-mm. And that system is set up intentionally so that every month, every quarter, or every, whatever number of times of meetings that we choose to have, when we're doing and planning ourselves, when we're doing whatever activities we want to do, it makes us go back to say, okay, what did we plan to do in this year or in this month or at this time? How close or far are we, or what do we need to change, or what do we need to tweak? All right. And sometimes when we don't do those reviews, we don't see how close or far we are from it. Some of us would have even met our goals sooner than we anticipated. And that gives us an opportunity to stretch ourselves even further before the year is over. But then we don't get that opportunity. And then again, we're at the risk of settling for minimal life if we don't do that. And then we don't give ourselves the opportunity to grow and stretch ourselves even further. Or we don't see where we need to make adjustments or where we need to get extra help. So not having reviews is a huge, huge, huge barrier to goal setting and actually achieving your goals because you're not seeing where you're at per time. Right. And finally, unexpected life twist. Now, when I talk about unexpected life twist, the truth is that there are some of the things that you just can't do anything about. No doubt. No doubt. And I'll give you a very good example. When I was going to go into university, in my family, we had a plan. And that plan, my father was a stickler for investments and savings and whatnot. And we had a plan as a family. And that plan was that he wanted to own real estate in as many parts of the country as possible. And so he had said, okay, when you guys go off to university, my brother was going to go to Benin City in Nigeria. I was going to go to Osun State in the western part of the country. And the plan was that we're going to buy houses there and then we are going to be caretakers of those houses and collect rent. And that rent money was what was going to be our own sustenance fee, allowances, more like, right? I know it sounds cruel, but part of it was also to train us to learn how to be independent minded and just be assertive. There were a couple of things. All right. And so there were all these plans. All right. And there was a certain lifestyle that we were used to. And then we both gained admission. A couple weeks later, my dad died. Now, there is no way we would have been prepared for any of that. Absolutely no way. Absolutely no way anybody prepares for something like that. All right. In the same way, coming into 2020, a lot of people had beautiful plans, goals, and then COVID hits. Some of them died. All right. And that's really sad. And there is no way anybody would have prepared for that. And for those who didn't die, maybe they lost a loved one. And there is no way you can prepare anybody for the death of a loved one. No way. And there is no, quick bounce back principle to that. Honestly speaking, there is none. All right. But there are ways that one can still navigate through life at your own pace, in your own time. All right. That can help you gradually come out of those events. Okay. But then for the purpose of this context of goal setting, I like to speak to people who, yes, COVID happened, but then you didn't lose your job, you didn't lose anything, you didn't get sick, nothing happened to you, but then you still went through the year and it's like, okay, what exactly did I do with myself? Okay, but when those moments come that yes, it was beyond you, but were there opportunities that other people were able to take advantage of? Then it begs the question, why not you? All right, because we've even seen people, and one of my mentors actually, and this is a true story, she lost her job at a time she didn't expect to. All right. And after losing that job, nobody prepares you for that, right? And she could have, and I've listened to the story, she could have gone into a place where, she was, well, in all honesty, she was in shock for a while, no doubt. But beyond the shock, when all of that weared out, when she finished grieving and when she finished, feeling sad and pity for herself and doing all of that, she got back to a place where she asked herself certain questions and asked herself, okay, what exactly do I need to do? This is where I needed to be. What do I need to do now to get back on track? All right. And sometimes those are the questions that we need to get back to asking ourselves if we're going to move beyond that, even when it's things that we don't expect and are beyond our control. All right. So these are some of the barriers. Again, not an exhaustive list, but sometimes it gets in the way of us achieving our goals. All right. So then how then do we overcome these barriers? I told you that these are very simple things, or at least they look simple, but it's not always as very easy, to go over them. All right. So by now, I'm hoping that some of you already get the kicks of where we're going with this. All right. How do we overcome these barriers to goal setting? Number one, write them down. All right. A goal that is not written is only a wish. All right. And that's Brian Tracy. And one very good book, if you're looking for a book to read to help you with that, is No Excuses. It is a great book to read. All right. A goal not written is only a wish. are your goals written down? All right. And we're going to look at when you're writing it down, what exactly should you be writing down? All right. But are they written down? Is it visual? All right. Vision creates clarity. All right. Write the vision, make it plain that he that runneth, that reads may run with it. This is putting it before your face. And that is from the Bible. It's from the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2. All right. Is your goal written down? This is where you tend to start to visualize it. All right. And whatever works best for you, when you're visualize for visuals, is what you go with. If you're a numbers person, put things in numbers, paste them on your wall. All right. Put it somewhere that only your eyes can see if you're not comfortable having other people come in and see them. If you're a picture person, then put pictures up and say, this is what it's going to have to be for me by the end of the year. Put them in pictures, place them on your wall. You see, it has to be somewhere that you would always see it. Okay. Is it if you're a word person, I am more of a word person. All right. Put them in words. Okay. And put it somewhere that you can see. All right. And the more you see it, sometimes you're propelled. And I'll give you a very practical example of what happened to me over the pandemic. All right. One of the things that I wanted to do was try and just kind of maintain some measure of a workout lifestyle. And for every week I had like routines that I follow on YouTube. And every week that I failed to put up what routine I'll be doing for that week on my mirror, guess what happens? In that week, I tend to fall off the wagon. But every week that I actually put, my stickies and say, okay, this week I'm going to do arm workouts, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, and I put it on my mirror. If I fail to do it day one, I would always look at that mirror. All right. And sooner than later, it became obvious that one of the greatest undoing for myself was that I wasn't putting it somewhere that I would see to always remind me. All right. And so put it somewhere that you would always see. It's a constant reminder to say, okay, I have to do this. All right. And sometimes we just honestly just forget. Okay. So write it down, make it visual, put it somewhere that when you see, it motivates you. And then one other way to overcome this barrier is to build a great support system. Keep away from dream killers, please. Ladies, like I said, one of the reasons why Ladies Arise exists for me is I am tired of seeing us ladies as women. We tend to put each other down even more than the society puts us down. More than men put us down, we are sometimes our number one undoing. And that is wrong. And when you identify people who just are intent on killing your dreams, male or female, as much as possible, stay away from them. If there are people you live with, then maybe you find different ways of keeping your dream, your goals visual in a place that only your eyes can see, so that they don't see it and make fun of you, because those things can demoralize you. Okay. So let's say you put up on your wall and say, in this semester as a student, for instance, I'm going to make all A's. Someone comes in and they chuckle and say, all A's, all A's, please. It can demoralize you. All right. So if that is your experience, or you have people like that, or when you want to study, that's when they want you to come and, go to one party or go visit someone, and that would upset your system, then you want to stay away from such people, or keep them at bay. All right. So find and build relationships with like-minded people. Okay. When you see someone who is passionate about life in a way that you want to be, you would like to see yourself be, get close to such people, make friends with them, be close to them, ask them questions. Okay. And one thing I always encourage people with is that you share the information to other people doesn't make you any less accessible to that information. Share the information with them. If you have something, share with them. If they have something, they should share with you. All right. And then another thing is to identify role models, mentors, coaches, and accountability partners. Okay. Now, a role model is someone that you can't have direct access to, or you may not be able to have direct access to. So let's say one of my role models in life is Obama, right? And chances that I'll meet Obama in person today is very slim, but I do believe I'll meet him in person, right? But I can read his books. I can listen to his podcasts, right? I can read his speeches, right? I can learn about the things that makes him very unique that people are endeared to. I can learn about those things about him from a distance. I don't have to be close to him because those are things that they've done and they've succeeded and they've poured it out into trainings and materials and podcasts and YouTube videos for us to access. And I can study this person from a distance and learn about all those things and help myself grow. And that's a role model. A mentor, on the other hand, you have more direct access to. All right. I have mentors and I have people that I mentor. All right. And that's a very good chain to always have. At any given point in time, there should always be someone you are looking up to because that's what propels you. Again, keeping it before your face. There's always someone who you're looking up to. And what mentors help you do is they've been through the same path of life that probably you're trying to navigate through. And they help you identify pitfalls in that area. Okay. And so, okay, don't do this way, do this way, change this, change that. Okay. And that's what mentors do. Right. And you want to have someone that you're looking up to in that sense, and you want to have someone looking up to you, because what that does to you is that there's a picture before you that you're looking forward to. All right. And when you know that there's someone who is watching you to make sure that who is watching you and you are a picture for someone else, you want to make sure that every time they look at you or the picture of your life, it's a beautiful thing that they want to keep looking at. Okay. And so it forces even you to grow because there's someone looking up to you as much as you're looking up to someone. Okay. So if you're in the idea of having mentorship, as much as possible, that is the recommended chain to have. And then coaches is somewhat different from mentors in that they may not have emotional investments in you like mentors will do. They may not even be in the same field as you, but they actually help provide clarity. All right. I hired a coach for the first time this year, and I was always skeptical, but seeing the results that I have achieved in what I am doing, all right, and why I hired the coach, I'm really amazed at how much difference that can make in the life of a person. And then accountability partners, and this can be anybody, all right. In Ladies Arise, one of the things that I am trying to do with the channel is to help us build accountability to for one another through that channel. And it can be your spouse, it can be you and your children. Okay, I set up a nightly routine for myself now, and there's conversations that from next year I would have my daughter hold me accountable because boy, she will bug me to death if I don't do it. Right. And she has more power over that than even my husband does when it comes to such things, because she's a huge fit farm person. All right. That the rest of us are not in my house, obviously. All right. So identify people who you know that have what it takes to hold you accountable, that you can listen to, you can respect them. Okay, so another way to overcome barriers to goal setting: maximize technology. Now we all have a phone, right? We all do. We all have a laptop, but so many of us have these gadgets and they use us. We don't use them, and that's sad because you got them for your use. You didn't spend that money for technology to use you. You got technology to use it. All right. And one of the things that we fail to do with the technologies that we have is simple things like an alarm clock, a calendar, um, um, a notepad, simple things like that. We fail to use them. So, for instance, there are people who register for this event, right, and they show up. Chances are you go and ask them, "Oh, what happened? You didn't show up." "Oh, I forgot." An alarm clock, a calendar could have saved that. All right. And the truth is, in the simple, small things, it's what we do. In the larger things, it's also what we do. We just don't realize it, because the truth is, there's this saying in the Bible that he that is faithful in little will be faithful in much. If you're doing it on a small scale, and that's what you do consistently over time, the truth is, if something big comes up, that is exactly what you're going to do. Some of us live in this illusion that, oh, well, I'm only doing this now at this stage because nobody knows me, or because nobody's going to see it. But the truth is, if you keep doing that, it becomes who you are. It becomes your habit. It becomes your default setting. And even when people are watching, that's what you're going to do. You can pretend when people are watching to try and do it differently for a while, but guess what? You won't sustain it because it's not what you've built for yourself over time. Okay, so maximize technology. Um, Whatever it is, all right. And for I know, like in this COVID period, there were a number of organizations, churches, even individuals who, when things happened and they were thrown off the wagon, they were able to maximize technology that is available to them to quickly redirect themselves and still achieve their goals, and some even better than they anticipated because they were able to take advantage of technology. So every technological gadget you have, from Fitbits to phones to apps that you download. Some people have 1,000 apps on their phone. All right. All those apps you download, how many of them have you used to propel yourself from point A to point B? And your life is the better for it. Use technology. Don't let technology use you. All right. And there's actually a documentary that talks about, how technological companies intentionally create these things to actually put people in this cycle. When you have that understanding, you can beat the system. So find a way to beat that system. And then another thing is having a long-term goal. So I mentioned earlier that when we don't have our goals over a short period that we're looking to achieve tied into a more long-term goal, then we stand the risk of, fizzling out quicker. All right. So is your goal tied to something beyond just 1 year? If you figured out your life's purpose, then that's a good thing. If you have an overarching goal or vision for your life, then that's a good thing. So for instance, let's say you're someone who says, I want to do investments, I want to have property investments in Canada, right? And you're saying in the next 5 years or 10 years, I want to have a one-stop real estate company that not only builds houses, but sells houses and also does rentals, right? And you look at year one, what can I do? All right. So year one, maybe you say, I'm going to make an investment property. And then you buy the one property, right? And year two, let's say you say, I'm going to make that 3 properties. All right. And then year four, maybe you say, okay, I'm going to build a house. All right. And gradually, you're adding to that. And then one day you own this one-stop real estate company that does all of these things. And guess what people say? Oh my gosh, you just blew overnight. No, she did not just blow overnight. She took time, she planned, she set goals yearly, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. It fed into that end goal that you now see and say she blew overnight. Okay, and that's what happens. That's one way that we can actually help ourselves, overcome those barriers, is to say, okay, here's something more long term. All right. For students, for instance, one thing I always advise is, the course of study you're doing, and this is in an ideal sense, okay? The course of study you're doing, why are you doing that course? Or what is your plan for your life? Or what are you looking to? What is your general, even if it's just a general picture of where you see your life headed, right? And that will define the kind of course you want to study in school. That will define how you choose to perform during your course of study. That will define what exactly you're looking to do. And a good example I'll give you is, I'm someone who I'm looking forward to. I'm still trying to decide. I haven't fully decided if I want to do a PhD or not, but it's somewhere there. All right. It's somewhere there in one of my life's plans, or life's hopes, I would say, life's hopes to do a PhD. And what that meant for me is that in this part of the world where I live, what that means is that oftentimes people will tell you that you can't do a PhD if you don't have a research-based experience. All right. And so when I applied for my master's, I applied for a research-based master's program in public policy. I wasn't offered that. Instead, I was offered public administration, which is course-based. Now, the first question I asked was, I'm looking forward to doing a PhD someday. I'm hoping that I will do a PhD someday. Wouldn't this impede my chances of a PhD? And luckily for me, the person who called me was in the exact same boat that I was. and didn't get to do a master's that was research based. And he said, oh no, as long as you have a minimal of, I think, 80% or so, you'll be allowed to bypass the process where you'll be required to do a 1-year bridging course for research. And that just tells me, okay, I'm going to do MPA. It means that whatever happens, I can't have less than 80% as my graduating point. So that in right there fed into a different goal. So, okay, master's degree, I can't have less than 80%. And that was the goal that I worked with, to say that I'm not going to stick to 80%, because chances are if anything happens and I fall short, then it means I'm definitely going below 80. What that made me do was to say, whatever happens, I'm not going below 85%. Now, I didn't make 85%, but I didn't make 80% either. I was somewhere in between, right? And at least that now gives me the opportunity to still have what I want. If I choose to go in for my PhD, I can have saved myself 1-year bridging gap to go and do a course research-based program, because I have the grades that it will need to. Now, it's possible that that changes when that time comes, but at least there is something that I have that is concrete that I'm working with towards an end goal. Okay, so have a long-term goal, and that would actually help you break down goals in your year better. And as you achieve more, you tend to do more. And then finally, staying consistent. Now, this is the most seemingly tricky one, because sometimes people tend to give up too easily. All right. But consistency, perseverance is very key. Even when it seems like you didn't make the goals that you're setting to make, go back and ask the questions. This is where reviewing comes in, to say, what happened? What could I have done better? Why I say failure is not always a bad thing is because the truth is that we can see failure as a cue to stop doing whatever we're doing, or we can see it as a way to not do that thing, if that makes any sense, right? So I feel at something, I can either decide to say, okay, well, I guess this is never going to work for me. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to drop out of school, or I'm just going to quit this job. I guess it's not for me. Or we can say, okay, I guess it just means that I can't do this way. How can I do it better? All right, so stay consistent. All right, nobody ever succeeded at something they gave up on. Okay. Um, there's a saying that winners never quit, and quitters never win. I know it's one of those. It sounds like one of those spare moments, but the truth is that, if you quit, you don't get to win, and if you win, it means that you never quitted. Sometimes you can take breaks and rest, but when you finish resting, get back on board. Okay, so some goal setting fun facts that I'm going to share. It turns out that only 3% of human beings actually set goals. So the question that I have for you that maybe you should leave here asking yourself is, are you the 97 or are you the 3? Which is it for you? For the longest time, to be honest, I was the 97, and now I'm in the 3. Now, I also just put here some sayings that I think that would actually help us as well. According to a person called Orison Swike Martin, says, all who have accomplished great things have had a great aim, have fixed their gaze on a goal which was high, one which sometimes seemed impossible. Stretch goals. I talked about that earlier, setting stretch goals for yourself. All right. So beyond setting the goals, we talked about one of the ways to overcoming those barriers is to write them down. And Zig Ziglar said, a goal properly halfway reached. All right. And I'm just going to add to say, writing them down is a good place to always start. Okay. So when you're setting a goal and you set it properly, you're halfway there already. All right. And one of the easiest and simplest ways to start is just simply take a pen and paper, or take your laptop and write it down. Okay. Write the vision down. Write it down. All right. And keep it before your face so you're always seeing it. And to our New Year resolution people, this is the statistics. It says 92% of New Year goals fail by January 15th. To be honest, if anyone had asked me how long it takes before New Year resolutions fail, I would probably say maybe February, March, but January 15th, and this is based on a study that was done in 2016, January 15th. Wow, people, we have work to do, and we have to do this right. Okay. And this is why I say that goal setting is not, it is definitely not New Year resolution, because those fail by mid-January. We're not even done the first month of the year, and people are fizzled out already. And I don't want that to be you. All right. And that's because intention without action is an insult to those who expect the best from you. And that includes yourself. You should always expect the best from yourself, for yourself, and for those around you. All right. And when you have intentions, when you have goals and you don't write them down, you don't set them, you don't keep them before your face and then actively pursue them, it's an insult. All right. To say, I want to do all these things, but then there's no backup action for those things. It's an insult on yourself as well, and to those around you. All right, so those are some goal setting fun facts. Let me know anyone that you've been aware of or before now, and I'd be happy to know where we find ourselves. Are you in the 3%? Are you in the 1%? Are you in the 99 or in the 97? But whatever the case is, I do hope that when we're done this year today, you'll be on the top 3 percentile and on the top 1 percentile of those who write down their goals. Okay, so the moment we probably all have been waiting for. Good goal setting. Sorry. All right, so I mentioned earlier that when we all think about goal setting, everybody thinks about SMART goals, all right? But when we don't understand why we're even setting goals and the benefits that come with that, and we don't understand why we are, what the barriers are to what can actually impede us from setting goals and achieving them, and we don't understand the things that we can do to help us overcome them, the truth is, if I tell you about setting SMART goals, you're probably going to still try and set something, but it may not work. All right. So I believe strongly in understanding why you're doing the things you're doing and what it entails and what can possibly be an impeding factor. And if those factors come up, how you can deal with them. So having understood all of that, the question then becomes, when it comes to goal setting, are you smart? All right. Is your goal specific? All right. The more specific it is, the clearer it is for you. And you want to be as concise as possible. So someone who says, I want to make more money or I want to lose weight, all right, that is very vague. And if it's that vague, chances are that year in, year out, you might remain in the same spot. Okay. So a good example of being specific can be, I want to make an additional $10,000 this year, or I will lose weight towards my goal, that towards my wedding, right? That is as concise and clear as possible. Okay, so is it specific? All right, and is your goal measurable? And that's the M in the acronym SMART. Is your goal measurable? Okay. Um, um, so let's say and depending on whatever works best for you, how you frame it really doesn't matter. That is a question of semantics for most people, but it has to be something that works best for you. All right. Some people can decide to say, I want to increase my income by 10%, or I want to increase my income by 20%, or I want to reduce my mortgage debt by 30%, or I want to lose 10% of my body fats, weight, whatever, right? How you phrase it all depends on you, but it should be concise, it should be clear, it should make sense to you, and you should be able to quantify it, all right? So 10% is quantifiable. So for someone who say makes $10,000 monthly, right? They know that what they're looking to do is make an additional 1,000 every month. Okay. Or for someone who weighs, say, 250 pounds, right? And they say, I want to lose 10 pounds towards my wedding. All right. It means that they know that something has to shift from 250 to 240. Okay. And then is it actionable? All right. What is your action plan? Okay. When you have something very clear and concise, and you've quantified it, all right? You've measured it. Then you're able to know when you're meeting the goal or you've met the goal or not. You're able to see how close or how far you are from that goal. Okay. So, for instance, a student says, I want to hand in my assignment 1 week before the deadline in this semester or in the new semester, right? So let's say that's your goal, is that for every assignment that I have, I'm going to hand it in 1 week before. And you put that down, all right? And then you look at the number of assignments that you say have to do. And now you're able to say, okay, what would I need to do? What actions would I need to take to make sure that 1 week before the deadline of every assignment that I have, I'm able to hand it in to the lecturer. All right. Or I will lose 10 pounds before my wedding. So let's say your wedding is 3 months from now and you're 250 pounds and you want to go from 250 to 240 pounds. Okay. Because you've made it clear and there's a why attached to it. There's a wedding coming up. There's something strong that is attached to it for you. You know how much exactly you need to lose, right? You're able to then say, okay, maybe I need to take a 1 mile walk every day. Or I will do intermittent fasting to 12 noon every day to move me closer to that goal. All right. And then closely following your action plan that you need to take. Or for a student, you might say, I will set my own deadlines, all right, 1 week before, 2 weeks before, and then review a week to the deadline that I am setting for myself so that it's ready a week to the actual deadline to submit. All right. But following through that is your goal realistic? All right. And here I say realism within your reality. Okay. And why I say that is, for instance, if you're, say, a mom of 2 or 3, and for whatever reason, let's assume ideal good reasons, your bedtime is never earlier than 12 midnight, and you're awake at, say, 6 a.m. every day, and you know that you need 1 hour, 30 minutes to get yourself and your kids out the door every day if you're not going to be late to go to work. And when you come back, you have other things that you have to do at night, and then that carries you up until 12 midnight. And so, say you want to lose weight, right? And then you identify and say, okay, in 2021, I want to attain my ideal body weight of whatever number, right? And you say by mid June, I expect to have lost, say, 20 pounds or 10 pounds, right? And then your actionable plan or your action plan is that I will work out 1 hour every morning, right? That's your action plan. Now, that action plan may not fit your reality. It may not be realistic enough for you. I say, opposed to someone else who, between that 6 a.m. and let's say you need that your 6 hours of sleep. If not, your body is in trouble, right? Let's say that's your reality, is that you have to sleep 6 hours every night to be at your best function, but then you don't go to bed earlier than 12 midnight. And it means you have to be awake by 6 a.m. if you're going to leave the house at 7:30, and it takes you just about 1 hour, 30 minutes to get yourself and your kids ready and out the door so that none of you are late for your daily activities, right? And then here you are saying you want to wake up, say, at 5 a.m. every morning to do a 1 hour workout. Chances are that that might not be realistic for you, as opposed to someone who can, wake up at, says, that same 6 a.m. and then work out from 6 to 7 and only have themselves to maybe get out the door in 30 minutes, if that makes any sense to you, right? And so you want to make sure that your goal that you're setting is realistic, but within your own life's reality. One of the mistakes that some of us make is that we want to set goals for ourselves based on someone else's life's reality, and it won't work. All right. If you don't understand what works for you, then you'll jump on every bandwagon that's out there. Okay. So for someone like that, for instance, what might be more realistic for such a mom would be to say, I will take a walk, a half-hour walk every day over lunch hour, as opposed to I will wake up every morning from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. and do a workout. all right? Or to say, I will do a 5-minute morning stretch every day, and then do a half-hour walk over lunch hour. That might be more realistic for such person as opposed to someone else who isn't in that same space as that lady, right? So whatever your reality is, you want to identify that and then make realistic goals, set realistic goals that are actionable, that you can quantify, and is clear enough for you to understand. Okay, and then your time limits. The T in the acronym stands for time limits. All right. Again, this is not new to most of us. All right. What timelines does for us is it creates a sense of urgency in our minds. Okay. And this is where even reviewing comes in handy. So if you set a time and you say 1 month from now, I should be at this level in my investment or in my savings. All right. 1 month from now, you go back and you check. Are you there? If you're not, then you want to sit down and ask the question, why am I not there? What am I doing wrong? What can I do differently? Okay, so time limit sets gives us a sense of urgency, and deadlines can be a motivation as opposed to overwhelming us. When you set a realistic goal that you can measure and it fits well within your reality, the truth is that deadlines won't overwhelm you. It will actually give you, more propelling force than giving you an. If it's feeling overwhelming all the time, then maybe you need to check back to see if it's really realistic enough for you, or the goals that you're setting are realistic. Now, all of that being said, no matter what you do, yes, set realistic goals and all of that, but be sure that you're giving room for yourself to also be stretched. Okay. So be willing to be stretched, be willing to set your goals, be willing to write them down, be willing to review them, and be willing to do a little bit more than where you were yesterday. Okay. If you have any questions, please don't forget to put them in the chat box, and we'll go over them once we're done and we're almost at the end. So I did promise that I was going to share some personal examples of some goals that were set for me and my family this year, and uh, irrespective of COVID, how we're able to navigate through some of these things. And I'm just going to help you see through everything that we've talked about so far. Okay, so one of the things that we looked to do was to clear off loans that we were owing. There was my student loan, and then we had to take out a loan to work on our basement in our home. And there was the plan to get a property investment. There was a plan for me to kick off some of my passion projects, Ladies Arise being one of them. There was a plan to spend. Drink the water in your mouth. There was planned for me to spend more time with my family than I was doing before, my kids, my husband. And there was a whole lot more actually, but this is just some of the examples that I'm choosing to take out of this. All right, so COVID hit, and it looked like all hell was going to let loose. People were not sure what they were doing with themselves, And I remember just one day feeling really overwhelmed when COVID hit, because I had just started a new job. I was 3 weeks in, and then COVID hit. And then here I am, no onboarding experience. And it just so happens that the unit I was working for at the time had to deal with some of the COVID issues and come up with policies to protect government employees where I worked. And guess who that fell on? C'est moi. So with no onboarding experience and no onboarding experience and not sure what I was supposed to be doing with myself yet, here I am now tasked with something that, it was new. In all fairness, it was new to everybody. All right. And when I was feeling really overwhelmed about this, because this was something that was also tied to one of my career goals, was to be in a stretch position, even if it was just for a short period of time. And boy, did COVID stretch me in that position. All right. And I was supposed to be dealing with psychological health and safety. And here I am almost freaking out in my own mental health. Okay. So one thing that I remember doing was one time just taking some time to just sit down, think through everything and say, okay, reality check, change of perspective. This isn't new to just me. So onboarding experience or not, lack of onboarding experience is no longer an excuse here because none of us in this group have experienced COVID before. And just changing that perspective to realize that, hey, I'm not the only one who is now new at this. Everybody else is new at this. To be honest with you, as simple as it sounds, it was one of the most freeing things that happened to me. And knowing that when certain expectations were now placed on me, if I maybe say fall short and someone tried to make me feel bad, it was easy to call them out to say, hey, look, we're all new at this. So can we just show a little more compassion rather than try and tear each other down? All right. And that was even a reality check that apparently we all constantly needed to have and show that compassion to one another. And so even in my career, it was easy to just kind of not easy, but it was helpful to re-navigate and redirect some of that perspective from, oh my God, I can't do this. I haven't been trained well enough for this. I'm going to fail at this. And don't get me wrong, even with all that change of perspective, there were still the highs and lows of my moment in that job. But overall, at the end of the day, it still paid off. All right. And to be honest with you, coming out of that position, I learned so much more, even about myself and people and leadership and whatnot, that I would have if COVID never really hit. All right. And on a more personal note, what that also helped do was, again, taking that lens of perspective change, was to see that, hey, in trying to boost the economy, the government was pulling out a lot of programs. And one of such programs was lowering interest rates. Frankly speaking, yes, my family and I wanted to reduce our mortgage by, well, we didn't exactly set the percentage, frankly speaking, but we were able to kind of take advantage. We did have conversations around how much more we wanted to pay into a mortgage at the end of the year. And in taking advantage, now, given everything that was playing out and given that, in terms of priority, we also had loans to clear off, that was becoming a little more challenging. And we could tell right away that saying you want to pay off loans and saying you wanted to at the same time pay more on your mortgage was kind of counterintuitive, right? But by the time we saw what the government was doing with lowering interest rates, it was easy to take advantage of that, reassess our mortgage, and we're able to get much lower rates and also save ourselves some money in that year. All right. Now that helped to actually meet the goal of we wanted to pay this amount into our mortgage by the end of the year. That helps, it helps provide some of that funding for that. All right. And schools were shut down. And if schools were shut down, then it meant that, everybody again was new to this, right? And we're paying all this money towards daycare fees. Okay. And in reassessing what we could do for ourselves, one of the things that we determined to do was, hey, we can pull these kids out of daycare temporarily and save up that money and channel that towards our loans. Right. And even if not, because nobody really knew what the direction of the COVID was really headed, and people were losing jobs left, right, center. I mean, that could have been us too, right? And it just made sense to say, you know what, we'll pull them out and save that money and just have something additional. If anything ever happens, we have this to, sort of bank on, was the thinking. But then luckily, thankfully, none of us lost our jobs. But then it was easy to now redirect that funding to clearing off our loans. And so what that helped us do was that instead of clearing off the loan by December, which was when we planned, by June, July, we were done clearing off that loan. Okay. And for passion projects, for me, one area that I almost kind of struggled and didn't do the things that I wanted to do this year. But this is where support system came in, because I talked to my mentor and I said, hey, I came into this year and I wanted to do this. And now I feel stuck because I don't know what exactly to do. I'm not sure how to navigate through this. All right. And support system, what that did was we had tons of discussion, tons, and she's in a different time zone than I am. So sometimes she was in midnight, talking to me. I remember one where she slept off on me, she was that tired. All right. But tons of conversations went in. I talked to a coach, all right, to say, okay, I just need some sense of direction here, and in all of that conversation with a coach, with my mentor, with my husband, between all of those conversations, I started piecing the pieces together. And this is where technological advantage comes in. All right. It was something I read somewhere where someone said, while some people will fall off the wagon during this season, others will take advantage of the social media world and will use that to propel themselves in this season. And honestly, that was kind of like my eureka moment where I'm like, wait a minute, that's it. All right. I don't have to wait for a perfect moment. And maybe COVID, yes, has thrown a wrench in some of the things that I wanted to do. But what if I took some of those conversations and I took some of those plans and I moved them online instead? All right. And so some things played out not the way I expected them to. All right. But I was able to take advantage of technology and say, you know what, I'm going to try and start doing these things, to help me move forward. All right. And similar thing with church. One of the things that I was telling someone, was that one thing that helped us with our teens church in my church, I work with the teens church, but one of the things that I feel like was really helpful was I remember at some point it felt like we weren't engaging these kids, and I wasn't comfortable with that. And I remember going over our year calendar and saying, what were the things that we planned to do this year? And realizing that, hey, we can move some of these things virtually as well. And so we had our summer book club. We had we had our prayers with these kids, and it became opportunity for training grounds for them. Okay. One of you here is on that group, all right? So and so some of those conversations actually started from there to say we can. But one thing that really helped was because these things were written down. They were written down, all right? They were written down. Um, they were pasted somewhere. And before the year started, I had thought about them and said, okay, these are the things that I wanted to do. All right. And one of the things that it helped me to start doing, even spending time with my family. All right. One of the things that I know I tried to do with that was take evenings off and spend time with my kids, because during the working hours we were studying together, and I wanted to teach my kids, especially my son, because he won't get an opportunity to be in pre-kindergarten. There were specific things we wanted to teach him and get him ready for kindergarten next year. And it seemed like all of that was out of reach, but we're able to, build a work channels process for ourselves at home, that while we were working, they were studying. And that kind of reduced the burden on us a little bit, but not so much that I wanted to do it again. Trust me, when schools closed down, this time I sent them off to daycare. I reviewed and I realized, okay, it worked for that period, but maybe it won't work for now. All right. And so we were able to take advantage of this and teach these kids the things we wanted to teach them within that time frame. And even when the evening plans didn't work to spend time with my family, I was able to re-strategize and say, okay, what can I do differently? And honestly speaking, just realizing that with COVID, a lot of shifts has happened. And the things that took me out of the house on Saturday were no longer in the picture. And what I did with that was repurpose my Saturdays to my personal rest days, where I just do nothing but sit down, spend time with my kids. I spend time with them other days, but just kind of quality time. I'm not much of a movie person, but sometimes they want to watch movies with us, and those are the days that I get to do that. Put away my phone for a little bit, recharge myself, and so just seeing how you can on the move, kind of make those changes and adjustments, all right, is one of the things that you can do when unexpected events like COVID happen. But it started with writing them down. Now let's even assume that when COVID hit, some of those things were not written down, and frankly speaking, not everything was written down. It was in conversations with my mentor that she started helping me see that, do you realize you're talking about this and this and this? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. And then she said, okay, how do we phrase that? And we went through a different session where we took what I had written down before and then other things that I was saying, but without realizing. Remember when I mentioned earlier that there's so much going on in your mind, but you can't really tell what it is, we put those things out from my head into paper, and it painted a bigger picture. And it was a long list, a really long list. All right. And after we're done, putting everything down on the list, we're able to now identify which ones were really important to do this year versus those that could also go into a different year. And that's applying flexibility and adaptability that we talked about earlier. All right. So even in just, and then also one thing too that it made me realize was how many things I was doing, and just finally admitting to myself that, Anita, I know you are not a superwoman. I am. We're all super women. Women are actually super. Honestly, I agree that we're super. But in the context of even super people need time to rest and unplug and recharge. All right. And just seeing all of those things and knowing where I needed to cut down on what activity. All right. So we all will go through the same COVID experience, and would all be on different ends of the spectrum of impact of such experiences, especially when it is on a large scale like the pandemic. But at the end of the day, for me, one question I always ask myself is that if there are people who were able to take advantage of this season and be better, then why can't I be in that percentage or in that group? Why must I be on the group that, had to, especially like I mentioned earlier, acknowledging when it's not the really huge things like you lost your job during this season, or you lost a loved one, or you yourself fell sick and you had to be hospitalized, especially when it's not even those really huge ones that, impact you directly. But when you're on the general scale, like everybody else, where maybe you still maintain your job, you still had a roof over your head, honestly speaking, your excuses just kind of really reduces, and you should expect more for yourself from yourself. Okay. I know some people, are more of the school of thought that just getting through the COVID itself is an achievement. And I agree. Honestly, I agree, because you also want to get through with a sane mind. Okay. But again, sometimes growth comes in the place of stretching. All right. It will not be comfortable. But if you're someone who wants to grow, then you have to welcome discomfort to a certain level. All right. And according to Helen Keller, although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it. Back to the point I was making earlier, there are people who in this same season achieved so much more than maybe they've even had in years past. All right. And there are people who in the exact same position, barely move the dial. Okay. Now we can all excuse ourselves and say, oh, well, we're all going through a pandemic. But honestly speaking, we're on different ends of the spectrum of impacts of this pandemic. And depending on where you are on that spectrum, you can still overcome whatever it is that, impacted you in whatever way. Okay. And if we all know um, who Ellen Keller is, then you would even appreciate a lot more, a whole lot more, that statement coming from someone like her. All right. So, and I do believe that that is as much. I'm just going to quickly show us what the toolkit is like. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're in the Ladies Arise Club, you already have that toolkit. Okay. So before we take questions, I'm just going to quickly show us what it looks like. And just a second here. Okay, sorry, that's my alarm. That's me taking advantage of technology. All right, there we go. Okay, so it's simple. Like I said earlier, it's nothing fancy in that sense, but simplicity doesn't always necessarily equal easy. All right, so This is set according to different areas of our lives, or at least the most important areas of our lives: family and social goals, spiritual goals. If you're someone who is spiritual, like me, I'm a Christian, so I have my goals for how to move my Christian life forward. Financial goals, that's really important. Health and wellness goals, that would include physical health, psychological health, emotional health. Your career and business goals, what you're looking to do with your career. Are you planning any promotions? Are you looking forward to increasing business sales or hiring new people? Whatever the plans are. Academic and developmental goals, and um, um, academic and developmental goals, and then review. Oh, I think I have the wrong one open. Just a second, people. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment here. I made some adjustments, so I have to make sure that I'm giving you the right one. So while I'm pulling this up, I just want to, if you can just share with me quickly in the chat box, what has stood out the most to you so far. If you have any questions, please type them in, and we're going to go into questions and answers right away. You can also share with us which ones you've been, which of these processes you've been doing before, or what maybe your biggest challenge has been when it comes to goal setting, and what you think you're going to be doing differently after this. So even technology isn't exactly always reliable too. Okay, I found it. All right, so I'm just going to share again now that I found it. And I just want to say thank you guys for staying with me till the very end, or close to the end. Okay, can we all see this? All right. All right, so discussion on learning to fail, or the joys of failure. Awesome. Thank you, Edith. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. So that's one thing you're taking away from this. Timmy says, what stood out to me is problem solving skills arise from setting goals and working towards them. And that if an obstacle arises in the process, it is possible to work around it and look for what works better so you can still achieve that goal. Awesome. 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 Yeah, the way I used to do this when I was going through university was, and I used to make fun of myself, was I have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. And I know that sometimes those things may on the surface look like, you're expecting the worst to happen, but it's not necessarily always that. It's the mindset with which you're setting all of those different options for yourself, right? It's just the idea that, nothing is going to throw me off balance, right? And that's what we're all trying to guard against. So this is what I was trying to show us in this. In the version I opened up earlier, for some reason, this disappeared. So in the review here, I put a review place, a review table here. So what you want to do is you take the goal and say what goal. So you can either review monthly or weekly, whatever works best for you. You can review according to your earliest timeline. So let's say in your plan, in your goals for the year, you mentioned something about um, in the next 1 month, I want to maybe say lose 10 pounds, right? And you know that in the next 1 month, you have to go back and say, okay, have I lost my 10 pounds? All right. So you put the goal here. What was the goal? All right. And what worked? So did working out work for you? Did intermittent fasting work for you? And you identify the things that worked. You identify the things that didn't work. All right. For me, for instance, it took me a while because I kept trying to set if you know me, you know that weight loss is one of my biggest struggles in life right now. I know people have more serious problems in life. And so every time I try something, I do this where I'm like, okay, I tried this cleansing tea, it didn't work. All right. Or I tried this diet, it didn't work. All right. And I always have to ask myself these questions. Okay, what worked? And I think I finally identified what worked. So now I'm in a process of how do I then operationalize what is working for me on a daily basis in my life. And that's where I'm at now. So y'all pray for me that I will be able to find the discipline now to do it. Okay, so you identify what worked, what didn't work, and what you'll be doing differently. Okay, it's important that you're always asking yourself these questions. And this right here is critical thinking, problem solving 101. Okay, what worked, what didn't, what will I be doing differently? What resources would I be needing differently to do this? Okay, so that's what um, the review box is for. And for the long-term goals, so I put a space here for you to also include some long-term goals. Okay, so for someone like me, for instance, I'm gonna go a little personal deeper. All right, I would one of my long-term goals would be here to say I want to achieve my ideal body weight by this time. I won't tell you what the body weight is, but I want to achieve my ideal body weight by this time. All right. So let's say I want to say by the year 2020, I want 2020. Oh my God, 2020. By the year 2022, I want to be at my ideal body weight, right? And then I can say action item can be say lose 10% of that in first year, right? And or action item is that I will um, yeah, lose a certain percentage every year, right? And timeline is obviously yearly. And then what resources would I need? Haven't identified what works for me. What resources would I need? One resource, for instance, I'm realizing that, oh my God, sooner than later, whether or not I like it, I might need to hire a fitness coach. Okay. And because I've hired a coach before, I'm always skeptical about coaches, but because I've hired a coach before and I've seen that with the right coach, it is really always just worth it and it's needed. All right, now I'm a little more confident in hiring a coach for a different part of my life. Okay, so for instance, I'll probably need to hire a coach. What would it cost me to hire a coach? So let's say it will cost me say 5 grand to hire a coach to be with me for the duration of time that I need to achieve my fitness goal. Then what that means is that I would probably consider putting in my financial goals for say 2021 to say towards this goal I need to save maybe say XYZ amount of money, because I know that will move me closer to achieving my goal of maybe hiring a coach. Or part of my action items too can be hiring a coach, right? I'll have the money that I need to hire the coach on year 2 or 6 months into my workout plans or whatever it is that I am looking to do. All right. So, or a long-term goal can be I want to have a community of women, or I want to have a community of women um, of say 1,000 women, who have gone through, say, a mentorship program with me or whatever it is, right? And are empowered and are doing this and are doing that, all right? And that might be a goal or something that you're thinking of. It's a lot more long term, all right? So some of your action item might be to maybe build a community or build a WhatsApp group or whatever it is that you want to do, right? Can be an action item. But before you maybe build a WhatsApp group, the question is, what can you do today or in 2021 that would add up to this long-term goal that you're looking to do? All right. One, for people who know me, is I want to go into politics, for instance, right? Is that okay? What are some of the things that I need to do from now? That's a long-term thing, and the goal is okay, I'll contest in the next election, which is 4 years from now. Okay, but there are certain things that I would actually need to do today or in 2021 that you would find goal um, on my goal setting when you look at it that would actually be something that adds up to what I'm looking forward to do 4 years from now. And so that's what this is for. And so you can think about some of those things, all right, and put them here. Think of some things that you can do, in the immediate or in the near future that would propel you towards that goal. And then what this now helps you do is that when you're setting your goal for each year, each quarter, each month, all right, you begin to see. So, for instance, a student can say for their academic goal is that I want to graduate university as a greater distinction, all right? And that's a long-term goal because you're probably going to spend about, say, 4 or 5 years in the university. I want to be a distinction student, right? And then you put that as your long-term goal. Short-term goals, what are some of the things that you need to do? You know what you need to score every single year to accumulate over a 4-year period to make sure that you're on greater distinction, all right? And you want to identify some of the things that you need to do to propel you forward. Okay, and then here in this box where it says the why or reward, for whichever category that you're feeling in, is where you put something that is also kind of like either a reward. It's kind of like, think of it as for the joy that is going to be set before you, you will endure whatever you need to endure. And that was what was said of Jesus, right? The joy of seeing you and I come to him is why he endured the cross. So you're going to bear your cross and endure your cross so that you can laugh that laugh at the end of the year and say, yes, I thought I was going to die, or maybe I did die, but I resurrected. All right. And I achieved it. Okay. And you go into the next year feeling a lot more confident, a lot more motivated, and a lot more feeling like, yes, I can really do anything because honestly, trust me, we can do so much more than we realize or that we sometimes think that we can do. Okay, so for those of you who are here in this, who registered for this program, um, by default, you get this. If you have a different goal setting tool that works best for you, that's fine. It's okay. But for benefit of those who may not have, this will be sent out by default anyway. And then you can write down the things you want to write down, print them out, paste them on your walls. If you have pictures to back them up, put some pictures, doesn't hurt to put pictures of things that you're looking at or people that motivate you alongside your goals, and just begin to work away at them. And don't forget to stay consistent. Okay. All right. So, oops. Okay. So there are some um, messages in the chat box. All right, so yes, like I mentioned, one of the questions here is how do I get the toolkits? So if you registered for this event, you will get the toolkits. It will come in your emails definitely before the end of the year. I don't want to promise you and say today, but definitely before the year ends, everyone will get the email with the toolkits. All right, so Ife just says, learning to be flexible with goals is very important. And I find that once a goal is not going as expected, I tend to give up on said goal easily. Trust me, we've all been there. I've been there. And yes, sometimes just getting back on and reviewing is what we tend to do. All right. So Edith says, what stood out for me is understanding that my goals changing is me being flexible with my goals, not that I failed at the initial goals I set previously. when I set my goals at the beginning of the year and the changes in the middle of the year, I just kind of stopped reviewing the goals because it didn't align with what I originally wanted. Personally, I grew up to be a goal setter because I love writing things down and reviewing them so I do not forget. Edith, I am glad to say that you and I are alike in that same manner. All right. But yes, when they change, we tend to actually stop reviewing and going over them or setting goals because we feel like, what's the point, right? But rather than do that, the best way really is to go back and as humans, changes would always occur. Okay. If you had asked me 3 years ago, or 2 years ago when I was doing my master's, I was so sure that right after my master's, I was going to go in for my PhD. But to be honest with you, priorities have changed since then and now. And that's also because the more I think of my overall vision of things that I'm looking forward to do, especially as a migrant in Canada, one of the things that I think about, and one of the reasons why I want to do the things that I want to do is I just want to be able to let people who look like my daughter at that age, people who are younger than me, see me in places where I can be a source of hope in that sense to someone to say, if she can get there, then so can I. All right. And I constantly question to say, okay, I thought that being a PhD holder, being in a classroom and teaching a class full of students would be the way to get me there. But now I'm at a place where I question, say, is it really the only way though? Is there any other thing that I can do that I'm equally as passionate about that can maybe move me closer there than this? And so the goals might change for whatever reason. All right. And as we grow, as we see more things, as we meet more people, all right, we evolve. And as we evolve, either while we're doing the things we wanted to do, perspectives might change, or if perspectives don't change, we'll probably identify something that works better. And it's only natural to want to gravitate towards what will work better and try that or do that than stick to this is what I've said I wanted to do and I have to do this. And no matter what, I make headway or not, I'm just going to stick to it. And that can be really frustrating. So, are there any questions? Come on, guys. There has to be questions. Questions. Feel free to query too. I take good feedback in that sense. I'll give you all some time to just kind of think through and come up with questions if you have them. If Jesu, please feel free to read out questions as they come. Okay, so while we're thinking through questions, I'm going to um sorry, crave your indulgence and
The question just came in. Do you want me to
okay.
ask or do you want to go ahead?
Oh yes, please go ahead and ask it because I'm actually not in the chat box right now.
Okay, so it just says, why do I have to write down my goals when I can just put it in my head? Just thinking out loud. LOL.
Well, I'm glad that the person laughed. I'm glad that the person laughed because truly think about it. Here's the thing: when we put these things in our heads, actually, there's just the way our brain works, where it kind of tries to want to process it. All right. So if you remember, I started out asking the question of you feel like there's so much on your mind, but you really can't tell what's bugging you, right? And so what that does is it actually kind of murks up your brain, honestly speaking, and it will create a sense of feeling overwhelmed. One of the benefits of writing goals down that I probably didn't mention is it actually improves your mental health. I am the queen of mental health, optimal mental health. All right. So if it helps you when you keep it in your head, I know that's probably maybe a fun question, but sorry, you just pricked something in me. Right. If you keep it in your head, your brain starts trying to process it, but it's not exactly having a good picture of what it's supposed to be processing, what direction it's supposed to go. And what that actually does to your mind is murk it up rather than give you clarity and peace. Okay. And then you'll always keep feeling overwhelmed, like, oh, there's something I have to do, but I just don't know what it is. And then you are at risk of now going into a cycle where you're constantly working your brain, it's not getting any clearer, and then it starts to impact other things. All right. So while you're actively trying to maybe say study, or you're trying to actively work in the office, your brain is in the background and then it's processing that thing that you have just refused to write down, and give yourself the room to actually take time out to deal with that specific issue. And then your brain is constantly trying to deal with that behind the scenes, and that would impact your productivity in other areas. I don't know if that helps. I feel like it was supposed to be a fun question, but there are no fun with me on these things. I'm just kidding. Okay, more questions?
No, just contributions, and I get that.
Okay, awesome, awesome.
Yeah, so
Exactly, exactly. You're right, Ife. It makes them more tangible. It makes it more tangible writing them down. And thank you, Edith. Yes, it improves your mental health and keeps you from feeling overwhelmed. Exactly. Yep, and we evolve and perspectives change. Indeed, truly, they change. So if there are more questions,
there's one more question from Edith. Says, have you ever been able to achieve all your set goals?
no, no, Edith, I'm not even going to try and lie. Like I mentioned, um, um, weight loss is one area I struggle. All right, and I'll give you another example. I thought I was going to end this year as an author. I thought I was going to end this year as an author. Um, by God's grace, I'm writing my book, my first book, and I thought I was going to end the year as an author, but it didn't happen. All right, and this is where reviewing comes in. Okay, and I remember going into the fall, reviewing and saying, hey, I've been trying to write this book, and God knows I have adjusted from trying to write early in the mornings to trying to write late at night to trying to write a page daily to trying to write. And it felt like everything I was trying wasn't working. And it was frustrating because it was key. The idea of writing this book was key to so many things. It was tied to so many things for me. All right. And it started to bother me. And so I started asking myself questions like, okay, what can I do? All right. And why isn't this working? I've tried to tell my husband, hold me accountable. It wasn't working. Okay. And the more I, and sooner than later, that was where I realized that, you know what? I know someone who happens to be a writing coach who has written a book, and she's exactly described in that book everything I am feeling every time I sit down to write this book. All right. And so after I finished my own personal introspection, I realized that my accountability system needed changing. My husband wasn't cutting it. That's not one of the ones where I can have my daughter or my kids hold me accountable for. All right. So I needed someone who can give me that motivation of the joy of finishing a book. So it had to be someone who has actually finished a book themselves. It had to be someone who also would understand what it takes to write a book and guide me through it. This is my first time trying to actually write a book from start to finish with the intention of actually publishing, all right? So I had to get that extra help. And so I hired a coach. It cost me money, all right? And we're still in the process, but I am about 75% done right now. And this is something I've been trying to do since the beginning of the year. All right. And it took me going into September to finally realize that, okay, what I need maybe is a coach. All right. And I was willing to try that, but it took trying different things, changing different schedules, and none of it was working. But I didn't give up on it. I just kept trying different things. And, I just set my eyes on the price to say, I know why I want to write this book and I know what it would achieve. and I know what I'm trying to do with it. And I think of all the people that I know it would help, and I have to do this. Okay. And it was in all of those questions. Remember what I said about writing your goals down actually sharpens your subconscious antenna. All right. And all of a sudden, it's like, how I met this lady was even really funny and interesting and amazing. A mutual friend on Facebook who happened to be a classmate at the university or a roommate at the university just randomly added me to the group. We just started up for a while and she was like, hey, you blog, you should join this group. And then she added me up to the group. And the founder of the group, welcome people. And then, for some reason, and I rarely do things like that. I just reached out to her and I said, hi, I like your group. It's nice. And I like the fact that you're friendly. You're one of the few people whose groups I've joined who is this friendly. And we got talking and she checked out my blog and she's like, wow, you're right, where you should write a book. I'm like, wow, thank you. You said that. I'm actually trying to write a book. And she's like, what's the holdback? And I said, time. And she's like, time will always be a holdback. What really is a holdback? And we had conversations. And that journey eventually took months before I realized that, hey, wait a minute. This lady said she was a writing coach. Why am I not hiring her services to help me get through this book? And from January till September, we finally started the book journey for what it really was in, you know, um, October. And since October, no, November, kicked off fully, I've now been writing the book and I'm actually 75% done in 2 months, 75% done, what I couldn't do in 10 months. So no, Edith, I honestly, it's not every time I achieve every single goal. But every time I still go back and say, you know what, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to reassess and see what I can do differently. And that's where I'm at with, my weight loss goals, for instance. So I don't know if that helps. Okay, so ladies, I will crave your indulgence and I'm just going to share a link here. And I'm just going to ask you to just kind of take a minute. This will just take about 30 seconds, really. I'd like your feedback just to kind of help us do better next time to say, what can we do differently? Okay, so please just offer me your feedback quickly through that link in the chat box. And exactly, come up with a reward system. Exactly. All right, so just help me follow that link quickly and just once you're done, just type done, 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 done in the chat box so that I know that we're done and I can take that feedback and do better next time for when I get to do something like this, when I get to do something like this. Thank you, Ife, for sharing. Yes, set. And that's why in the toolkit, there's the reward, there's the why and reward. So it's either you know why, you have a strong why for why you're doing what you're doing, or you attach a reward system, okay, to say, if I achieve this goal, I'm going to do this for myself as a reward. And that becomes, a motivating factor for something that you're looking forward to do once you achieve that goal. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you, Anita, for being here. I know you are, I think, I'm not going to assume, but I think you're in a different time zone. Thank you, Edith. I know you're in a different time zone, but thank you for being here. Thank you, Fatima. We will talk. You came late. Just kidding. I'm not putting you on the spot. Thank you, Omoti, Omotayo. Thank you, Auntie Remy. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Sharon, thank you for being here. Timmy, thank you for being here. And my wonderful, wonderful, super cool host, Ife Jason, always representing Nosife. Thank you so, so much for being here. So please, just before we go, we have about a minute to go. If you still have any question, I can still take one more question. Just help me feel that. And once you're done, just type in done, done, done. And we can call it a day. Thank you. Thank you, Ife. Thank you so much, Edith. Thank you. The essence of this is just to help us do better. I'm believing that this will be the first of many trainings that we'll be conducting, and it's just to help us know areas that you'll need the most, you benefit the most from, and what we can do differently next time and whatnot. And in the future, when we're even bringing in guests, we can identify who needs to be here. Okay, so this is all part of the goal setting process for me as it touches Ladies Arise, to be frank with you. Thank you. Thank you, Antorini. Thank you, Fatima. Thank you. Thank you. So it's 2 o'clock, and I don't want to keep anybody beyond 2. For those of us who I believe are still filling out the survey, I'll encourage you to continue filling out. And if there is no more questions, then I guess we are done. Yes, the video will be available to watch. So when I'm sending out the toolkits to everyone, everybody who is not on the Ladies Arise subscription list, when I'm sending out the video, and just as a disclaimer though, we're probably gonna have to add you to the list to send everything out to everyone. We're also going to send out the link to the video and the toolkit. And you're always welcome to unsubscribe if you don't want to be in the emailing list. That is completely fine. But yes, you'll get the video as well as the toolkit. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, sometimes we need the reminders. I had a great time too. Thank you. All right, ladies, have a great evening for those of you who are in your evening, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon for those of us who are still in the afternoon. Take care and happy 2021. Happy Rising 2021. And happy scoring in 2021. Thank you. Bye. Thanks, Amy.